The playoff field is finally set in what felt like the most Gen 6, Gen 7 Superspeedway race we've had, and it was a welcome change. Let's talk about it. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Above the Yellow Line on the ATYL Media channel, where we talk NASCAR all the time. This weekend, we were at Daytona, capping off the regular season for the Cup Series, and it was yet another race for the Xfinity Series in their regular season. And for the Xfinity Series, Parker Kligerman scored sweet redemption. It was so cool to see. Driving in the Junior Motorsports number 88, filling in for Connor Zilisch, Parker Kligerman captured his first Xfinity Series career win. Of course, we all know that he won the Truck Series race earlier this year, was disqualified following that. I was in the media center when all of that happened. It was devastating. So for him to get this win in a Junior Motorsports car, the way he talked about Dale after the race, the celebration after the race too, was just so cool. I talked about it on my social media pages, but congrats to Parker Kligerman, such a huge deal. I know the history books won't show that he won this race because the credit is given to Connor Zilisch since he started the race, but nevertheless, we know what happened. Parker crossed the line first, so happy about that. Then came the Cup Series race, where we were looking to see if the integrity of the playoff system was about to severely break or hold. And there was a few times where I was like, oh my gosh, we could see a huge surprise winner, like a Cody Ware maybe, like with the prophecy from a fortune cookie getting him to victory lane. If you know, you know. And as chaos started to unfold through the pack, we're getting to less than 10 to go. With 8 to go, Joey Logano spun from the lead, and I was like, oh my gosh, okay. Now we're getting into this scary potential overtime territory. Things are heating up. This is the final dash to win your way into the playoffs. We go back green, and with 3 to go, Kyle Larson put a 3-wide move on Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece then sunk back through the field, and he saw his playoff hopes dashed. But if you were looking from the back of the pack to the front of the pack on those wide shots, you saw 2 cars make their way through the field very quickly, and that was Cole Custer and Ryan Blaney. They came to play with 2 laps to go. They were fighting for the lead, Cole Custer throwing blocks on Justin Haley throwing blocks on Cole Custer, and sitting pretty all through that was the 12 of Ryan Blaney. And when we had the 1 to go in the checkered flag, Ryan Blaney was leading at the line, winning the Coke Zero Sugar 400. So Ryan Blaney went from the pole position set by a metric due to weather in the area to victory lane. He went from 13th to 1st in the final 2 laps. And of course, this happened with a 4-wide finish. I don't know what it is about Ryan Blaney with 3 and 4-wide finishes at these tracks, but nonetheless, he is so good at these Superspeedway type of races. I know Daytona has been up and down for him, a lot of downs. He's either head first into a wall or he's in victory lane. There is no in between at these races for Ryan Blaney, but he proves once again how he masterfully just gets himself to the lead when it counts and is able to win these races. It's pretty impressive. And what was nerve-wracking to me is as Ryan Blaney crossed the line, you saw all the cars behind him, 5 of which were just mere seconds away from their seasons turning around, all of them fighting for a playoff spot, a win and you're in situation. We're talking Cole Custer, Justin Haley, Daniel Suarez, Chris Buescher, Eric Jones. All were just mere inches away from seeing them in the playoffs. And my goodness, what could have been? My gosh. But Ryan Blaney held the line, won the race, no new winners, the playoff field is set, and we're going to talk about that in just a second, but let's get to the rest of our top 10. Daniel Suarez finishing in that 2nd position, and for Daniel Suarez, you hate to see that the good results are finally starting to trickle in for that driver, because he's been pretty consistent with top 5s, top 10s, after he announced that he's leaving Trackhouse Racing following this season. Still doesn't have any plans for next year, but this should act as a good audition nonetheless. Of course, it was finally announced this weekend, the worst kept secret in the garage, that Connor Zilisch will be going to Trackhouse Racing full-time in 2026. So we at least know the plans there for the Cup Series team side of things for Trackhouse. We just don't know what's happening with Daniel Suarez in 2026. So we'll keep you updated on that as we learn more. But Daniel Suarez in that 2nd position. In 3rd place, coming so close to the win, was Justin Haley. After the race, he said that this one hurts, especially considering the season they've had. And I don't think that 7 team had the season that any of us were expecting, starting with Rodney Childress as his crew chief. We thought that'd be a match made in heaven. Then Rodney leaves the team, and just the team has an identity crisis. They're in disarray, not getting the results that they wanted. Justin Haley says, though, unfortunate end to the night, but overall, a good day. I think this is a win they have to take carrying forward, though it's, of course, not the race win that locks them into the playoffs. In 4th position, Cole Custer. 5th, Eric Jones. 6th, Kyle Larson. And Kyle Larson is very quietly getting very good at these Superspeedway races. He won a stage in this race, and I feel like we're seeing him finish inside the top 10 more and more, so keep an eye out for that number 5 because he's figuring it out. In that 7th position, we have Chris Buescher, and we have to pause for a second and render a shaky salute to RFK Racing because none of their drivers made the playoff fight. They all had to win. They knew the task at hand. They got themselves into a pretty good position to win the race at the end, at least Preece and Buescher did, and ultimately it did not go through. Chris Buescher was asked, how do you come to terms with the end of this race following the event? And he said, I'm just going to be mad for a while, but he doesn't want to pout. He's just proud of this team. They could have done so much more. And I think if an RFK car got into the playoff fight, I think they would have been a force to be reckoned with. Do I think championship 4 caliber? I don't know, but I think maybe could have made it past the first round, second round, knowing how good those drivers are at the tracks in the first round and even to the second round. So very unfortunate to see there that RFK Racing will not fight for a championship this year. Of course, Ryan Preece finishing in that 14th position, Brad Keselowski finishing in 18th. And rounding out your top 10, we have Ty Gibbs in 8th, Josh Berry in 9th, and Chase Elliott in 10th. With Daytona complete, the playoff field is set, and things were looking pretty shaky for Tyler Reddick and Alex Bowman for a bit. Of course, we know early in the race, Tyler Reddick was involved in an incident where we saw his car go headfirst into one of the inside walls, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of damage to that car. That's gonna be really rocky for that 45 team. And then on lap 27, Alex Bowman was involved in a multi-car wreck that took him out of the race. So a sigh of relief for that 45 car, a sigh of panic, though, for that 48 because they were just waiting to see who would win this race to see if they'd be locked into the playoffs or not, because it came down to this. If there was a new winner, Alex Bowman would not be fighting for a championship. If there was a repeat winner, Alex Bowman would be locked into the playoffs, so he was hoping to God one of his teammates, somebody who's already won this year, would win this event. And luckily for him, Ryan Blaney won this race, so Alex Bowman definitely owes Ryan Blaney a few beers. And in Alex Bowman's words, he owes him about 7 million beers. Very appreciative of Ryan getting that win. All that said, let's look at our playoff seating here below that cutoff line. Heading into the round of 16, we have Josh Berry, Tyler Reddick, Austin Dillon, and Alex Bowman. And Darlington's a pretty good track for Austin Dillon. Same thing with Tyler Reddick, who almost won this race in the spring. So keep an eye out for those drivers to see some shakeups early in the playoffs. And I gotta say, I love Darlington as the race to end the regular season. You have to earn that final spot into the playoffs like we saw Chase Briscoe do last year. But if Darlington can't be that race and it has to be Daytona, then I'm glad that Darlington starts the playoffs, because it's like, all right, congrats, you're in the playoffs. Now show me why you're here. Darlington is such a tough track. So very excited to see how this shakes up. And I will be at the Southern 500 too. I'm very excited about that. So I will see you all there for the start of the playoffs. We're talking a whole lot about Darlington, but we have to close out our conversation about Daytona here with our race rating above or below the yellow line. And I said this earlier in the show, but this is the most Gen 6, Gen 7 Superspeedway race I've seen, we've seen. And I got that quote from the Iceberg, or Jarrett, over on Twitter. You all know him. He makes great content. And I saw that and I was like, this describes my thoughts on this race exactly. Like, I felt like I was transported back to 2018, where I was watching the Coke Zero Sugar 400 on my porch, watching Eric Jones get that win after multiple overtimes. Obviously, this race didn't have multiple overtimes. Nonetheless, I felt like I was transported back to the Gen 6 era watching this race unfold. Yes, we still had a lot of fuel saving, and we had drivers over the radio like Michael McDowell saying, we have to go, I'm ready to race. But I didn't feel the fuel saving was as egregious as it's been in races past at tracks like Daytona and Talladega, especially not as bad as it was during this year's Daytona 500. That was abysmal. So I actually felt like we saw drivers kind of pushing the limit a little bit more here. Obviously, if we got rid of stages, we wouldn't have this whole fuel saving nonsense. Nonetheless, though, you go to the finish of this race too, as the laps were winding down, and it was very, very good. Even like without the caution for Joey Logano before that, the intensity was picking up and you knew it was a matter of time before something happened. But these drivers controlled that chaos so very well. It was so enticing to watch. And with these super speedway races, and when we see 4 wide finishes, I have to check myself a little bit, because I'm like, I love the finish of this race, but overall, was the race as good as I felt in the moment when the checkered flag flew? So I went to Twitter, asked a lot of you, and a lot of you share the same sentiments. A lot of you saying that this was the best Gen 7 Super Speedway race there was. This was your favorite race of the year. My mom even texted me saying that this was her favorite race she's ever seen. Shout out to Mom, I love you. But I would have to agree with the comments here. I think that this was the best traditional Super Speedway race we've had in the Gen 7 car, quite honestly. It could be the best race this season. I don't know if we've gotten to that point, but it was pretty good. I would give this race an 85%, definitely above the yellow line. What did you think of the Coke Zero Sugar 400 from Daytona? Let me know in the comments below. And with that, we're done with this episode of Above the Yellow Line. And this coming weekend, NASCAR heads to Darlington, my favorite track on the schedule, the track that's too tough to tame, to start the playoffs. Very excited about that. On a Sunday, we're back to Sunday racing for a little bit, so mark those calendars. But for more from us here at ATYL Media, make sure to follow us on social media and go to AboveTheYellowLine.com. But thank you all so much for tuning in to this episode of Above the Yellow Line. Until next time, I'll see ya. Bye.